WWT presents Experts.
Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of WWT Experts. I'm your host, Matthew Coble, as always. So, state and local chief information security officers find themselves holding multiple truths. On the one hand, they must guard against sophisticated cyber threats, AI-powered deepfakes, metamorphic malware, and modern stuff like that. On the other hand, most attacks still occur because of lapses and pretty basic security practices. So hey, don't click on that phishing. Okay, you clicked on it. Oh boy, that's not good. So CISOs have to ensure agencies aren't using unsanctioned artificial intelligence applications, and at the same time, they must be seen as AI enablers and evangelists. So that's a lot of responsibility and a lot of balance there, and it's quite the balancing act. So that's why we're bringing you today not one, but two former state chief information security officers to discuss how to cover the basics and also drive those breakthroughs. So with us today, first up, John Evans is a seasoned technology leader with over 20 years of experience in security, cloud, and mission-critical applications. As former Chief Information Security Officer and Deputy CTO for the state of Maryland, he played a key role in advancing lots of statewide technology initiatives there. Today, he's a trusted advisor for worldwide technology and works closely with many of our state and local government clients and specializes in driving innovation and transformation for them, and really at that enterprise high-quality scale. Also with us today, Steve Meyer is a cybersecurity leader with over 30 years of experience in IT and security strategy. He's a former Chief Information Security Officer in the state of Missouri, and he's played a key role in strengthening statewide security operations and governance during his time there. Today, he's with Worldwide Technology as a senior consulting security architect, and he helps our state and local government clients align their cybersecurity solutions with their missions. Gentlemen, thanks for coming. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much for having me. Stephen, you have over 30 years experience. I didn't realize you were that much older than me.
IT and security. So we're going to, but I mean, there's a little bit more gray in me than you.
Yeah, well, I love the competition that's starting here between the two former CISOs. I love it. All right, well, listen, let's jump in. Tell us a little bit about that state government CISO role and what activities are those kinds of people thinking about in their jobs today?
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick and start us off. So Matthew, I think you hit the nail on the head. There's a tension, I think, that kind of exists for the state and local CISO right now. One hand, they want to stay out ahead of emergent threats. They know things like metamorphic malware, as you mentioned, are coming, are going to be enabled by AI in the not so distant future. We've already seen a proliferation of AI-enabled deep fakes that we've had to be concerned about. So it's a real thing. The threat landscape is changing, and we're going to need new techniques and potentially more advanced tools to be able to stay out ahead of it. At the same time, I would say probably the majority of large-scale attacks that are happening in state and local government are happening because they're not doing as good of a job maybe as they could be across the board in some of those basics. I'll give a real quick example. When I came into the state of Maryland, I had my top 3, top 5, top 7 things. I want to make it easy. I want to make it so that people could understand what to focus on. And in my top 3, it was exposed network protocols to the internet, patching, and recovery. And I can go into more of that if we get around to it later. But it was based on a risk-based approach to cyber that I chose those items. But getting those things done at the same time while you're looking at the emergent threats, it's not easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to build on that, I mean, you have Matt, you mentioned it already. You have your folks that you send out your phishing tests, and you have what we call the serial clickers. You send out 13 of them and they click 26 times, right?
Right.
And then send it to their friends of why isn't this doing anything? And so,
right.
You have that very basic of, don't do this or do this, depending on what it is. And it's all basic cyber hygiene things, right? But then you also need them to kind of grasp these weightier ideas of, the AI and the different nation states out there, and the global impact maybe of some of this. But to be able to balance, like you said, John, attention, to be able to balance that, and and then to have the right people in my shop with the right training to be able to help the users balance these things. So it is not an easy gig now.
Yeah. Well, so you both experienced this in that role, and now today I'm assuming you're talking with a lot of clients and other contacts who play the role. So how do you counsel them to best perform that balancing act?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to be able to address both. There's some good guidance, I would say, that's come out within the last couple of years around things like zero trust that can help with some of that. Zero trust, two of the, I would say, foundational pillars to it are identity and data. And those map back to the foundations. Those when I was talking about those basic building blocks of cyber, the getting back to basics, in large part, it's always been in some way about identity and data. So being able to look at the data, identify what your most sensitive data is, where that data lies, what type of controls do you have around your data, and looking at it from more of a risk-based approach now. Are those controls sufficient given the sensitivity of the data or the impact of the data if something bad were to happen to it? So there's a way to kind of balance it. I think that with some of the more recent guidance around, like I said, things like zero trust, it's enabling us to have a framework to help address some of those back to basics concepts, while at the same time looking at a very modern approach to cybersecurity.
Yeah, I mean, it's imperative that our business leaders, that the CISOs are working with, understand this as well, that this is their data, right? And so you need to have that relationship built with these leaders. And I called it the crown jewels, same of where John was going with that, is that, what are your crown jewels in regards to data, and applications that are using this data. And, like you said, access, identity, who has access to it? Is it in the cloud? Does it need to be in the cloud, or should it not be in the cloud? Who's got access to it no matter where it's at? And if you've got that relationship built, you and your team, with those business leaders, then that does make that job a lot easier to help guard that for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I imagine that, a lot of state and local government CISOs are dealing with pretty tight budgets, right? And I imagine there's also kind of newer pressure for that to be even tighter with the Department of Governmental Efficiency and kind of the stuff that we see going on there. How do you counsel those organizations, those individuals, to get the most out of their investments?
John,
Steve, you want
with that one? Yeah.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about what we do around our tools rationalization and some of that.
Yeah, I mean, it comes to, okay, you've got a certain finite amount of money, right? It's not like, on the states and the locals are just swimming in this money, right? And so, sometimes you have to rationalize your tools. What do I have in my toolbox? And you'd be surprised, just literally, when we talk to a lot of our customers, and we do have workshops that we can help walk them through, in the different areas of, what do you have, what tools do you have for this, and what do you have for that, and are they being utilized? Do you have the people to utilize them? And it gets fairly in depth, and if we've got the right people in the room, we start to get this picture of what is in your environment, and then it can help you look and see, well, maybe there is some overlap. Maybe this tool and this tool are pretty similar, and I'm only using a piece of them. If I can maybe just drop that to one tool, that does help save some of that money, right? So mm-hmm. the tools rationalization workshops that we do, I think, help in that regard tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll just add on a little bit there. There's a couple other concepts I would kind of add into that. One of them that I don't want to overlook for sure is what I guess some states have been calling sort of a whole of state, and what we call it at WWT also, a whole of state approach to cybersecurity. So by helping, central IT within state government has the ability to create purchasing agreements, to even help fund tools for local governments, for counties, municipalities. It's sort of creates a raise all boats together type of type of scenario. There's a lot of interactions between the locals and the state government, so it can be an attack vector, potentially a risk area. So by improving the cybersecurity posture of the locals, you're actually helping, arguably, the cybersecurity posture of the state as a whole, including the state government. So being able to utilize funds that are out there to help local governments can, in the end, help state governments also. And there's a benefit there around economies of scale too. If I'm purchasing for an entire state, creating some sort of purchase agreement, typically it's based on number of licenses, and the greater the number of licenses, typically the per license count is reduced. So not only can I, by looking at pooling some of these monies together, by creating this whole of state approach to cyber, not only can I make things more secure, but I may be able to even save a little bit of money while doing it. So I figure I would just add that on to what you were saying, Steve.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and whenever I was a state employee for 21 years, and I was always telling my folks that I've been a taxpayer even longer than that. And so when we've been entrusted with this taxpayer money, we need to be good stewards of that, right? Mm-hmm. And so that whole of state approach is a way to do that. Just like you said, the economies of scale, being able to buy things at maybe a rate that maybe your individual locality maybe couldn't, but if you're buying on a bigger contract, you surely could.
Well, Steve, earlier you mentioned tools, and that makes me think about, all of the flood of new technologies that are coming to market all the time, right? I mean, we absolutely see that here at Worldwide Technology, and it's exciting, but it can get overwhelming. So I imagine that a number of the CISOs out there are always being asked to look at, evaluate, test a new tool that's coming along. So I'm curious, how do you counsel them to do that? It's a different sort of balance, right? I got to do that when it makes sense, but also make sure I'm sticking to my basics and keeping kind of the foundational stuff in play. So how do you encourage people to strike that balance too?
Yeah, I mean, and I whenever I talk to these leaders, I always kind of produce this slide that's got it's got like 500 security vendors on it that do various things. And then I also produce this thing, it's called the CISO mind map, that has been created for the last 12 years by this gentleman on LinkedIn. And it's got like 500 or so things on it. So your CISO's got to concentrate on all these things, and you got to know about all these tools. And you really need a partner. I mean, you've got to have somebody that you trust, right? You need to have someone you trust that can help filter through this. And maybe the work that you're looking to have done has already been done. And if that's the case, oh, wow, that saves you a lot of time. And so you're still able, let's concentrate on these basics, but I still have the ability to reach out to that trusted partner to be able to pull research and to say, hey, give me, the good and the bad and the ugly, right, of these, let's say 5 vendors, in this space. And so, a trusted partner is invaluable in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You got to have people that you trust, and being able to, offload some work to those people that you trust. Certainly, I can't overstate enough the value and the benefit of that. I've never heard a CISO say I have too much money and too many people. So, but no, I totally agree. But just adding on there, going back to what I was saying on an earlier answer there about kind of the top 3, top 5, top 7 things that I was really adamant that we make sure that we try to be doing well. those were based on, it wasn't just based on me saying, these are things that I think. I started by asking a lot of the other CISOs, like, hey, these are the types of attacks that we're seeing in Maryland. Is this similar to types of attacks that y'all are seeing? So it was a informed, risk-based, approach to coming up with those top things. We found that there was 2 ways that bad guys were getting in typically, for the most part: exposed network protocols to the internet and email. And then we kind of looked at that and said, well, more people might be getting in through email, but the worst attacks are happening from people who get in through our exposed network protocols. Once they're getting in, it is potentially patching where we could improve to keep them from being able to move laterally. If something does happen, we need to be able to recover. So we start kind of going down this path of looking at what the attacker's kill chain would kind of look like in the most common scenarios and the most impactful scenarios, and then start to trying to secure for those things first. And if there was a better mousetrap out there that could help us secure for those things, we were all on board with that. And at times that had some residual positive effects of helping us in some other areas also that were a little bit more on that shiny ball side. But that's kind of how we approached it. And even if the TTPs or the methods have maybe evolved, that type of an approach still kind of makes sense to me.
Tanium brings you the power of certainty TM and delivers the industry's only true real-time cloud-based converged endpoint management and security offering.
Well, I think, we've talked about it a little bit here, but a lot of the attacks that are happening in this space are pretty basic, right? Exposed network interfaces, somebody goes for a phishing attack with an email, there's a bad password somewhere or something like that. But we're now seeing that more and more attacks are powered by AI. So I'm curious, how you're seeing CISOs shifting their mindset to be more aware of those AI-powered attacks. And it seems like AI can help defend as well. So what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I kind of see 3 areas that the CISO needs to concern themselves with when it comes to AI. And what you were talking about there is certainly one of them. It's those AI-enabled attacks. Won't spend a lot of time on them, but the other 2 would be enabling my cyber operations through AI, trying to do more with less, essentially. Going back to never heard a CISO say I have too many people and too much money. AI hopefully is going to help with that problem. I think we've already seen it helping a little bit there. And then securing the AI, so securing the LLMs, those AI-enabled applications is something the CISO is going to have to really figure out how to wrap their head around also. But in response to your questions more specifically, we're sort of in the middle of, or maybe evolving out of sort of what I'll call phase 1 of that problem. I think deepfakes, deepfake enabled by AI, is sort of the first phase of that AI cyber attack type of problem. The next phase is going to be significantly more challenging. We're going to need AI probably to get out ahead of it. It's going to be things like you mentioned metamorphic malware at the beginning of the session here. Polymorphic malware has been sort of at the very edge of human coding capabilities for a number of years. But now we're starting to see even metamorphic malware start to be able to be created through AI. So going to probably have to rely more heavily on AI to start catching some of those types of threats that can change everything about the way that they look like at every different hop within the network. And then, at some point, I'm looking forward to it, a little bit scary, but we're still going to need human in the loop even as we start to turn over more and more of the defensive capabilities over to AI, and as our adversaries turn over more and more of their offensive capabilities over to AI. Maybe someday we'll get to a point where it's AI just fighting AI and we can sit back on the beach somewhere, Steve.
I'll get a sunburn. I don't know about that. But yeah, so I agree with all that you said there. And, even to your point of, you've never heard a CISO say I have, too many people. And, that's kind of been the The problem is in our state and local governments, we just don't have a good track record of being attractive for folks to come and work for us, right? But if we start working with the latest tools and we start providing training on them, the newer folks that are coming into the workforce, those are the tools they want to use, right? And so we start to become attractive to them because we're using these latest tools, we're training them on these tools, right? And I think that it helps with retention as well, that, hey, I've got this tool that can do this, but I've also been trained on it, and I think I can even use it to do some other things that, make my job maybe a little bit easier and, help me look better for the boss, right? And so I think that these tools do provide a way for us to look attractive and retain some workforce.
Yeah, Steve, I'll just really quickly, nobody goes into state government because they say, I want to make a whole bunch of money. I want to go work for state government. You go into state government because you want to make things better than the way that you found it. So I think you're spot on. It isn't a stretch at all to think that people are going to want to look for other ways to better themselves, to better support the mission, as well as look for different ways to leverage some of these tools, those sorts of things. Because at the end of the day, it really is about improving things, making things better in the way that you found them. I think that's why most of us went into state government.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to spin that a little bit and provide a different angle to that too. And that I absolutely believe that there are a lot of people who are very excited about AI, right? And young, old, in between, and starting to really experiment that more and bring that into work. But for CISOs, that also introduces the idea of shadow AI, which could be a risk. So, another balancing act we're talking about here is, how do you encourage people within these agencies to do that experimentation in a safe, productive way and support the innovation while defending the organization as well? Like, how do you strike that balance?
I think I'd said it a little bit earlier, but I think it does. You start out with building that relationship with your business side, right? Mm-hmm. That you have not just your team, but you as the leader having that relationship with the leaders of these business units. That whenever what their initiatives are, what they're trying to do, then you've got that heads up, and you're not like blindsided on that. That 4:00 call on Friday that, hey, we want to start doing this at 8:00 on Monday, just rubber stamp that and approve that, right? But it's like, no, if you're having this regular cadence, and that's what I had established when I was at Missouri. I'd established that regular cadence with our business leaders to do that. Of course, then COVID hit, and that kind of threw all that out the window. And it was like we needed we were moving at a pace that we've never moved before, right? So, but we had we had started that, having that cadence and that relationship, and then also your teams having the relationship with kind of the boots on the ground in those agencies as well, that they have a contact person that they can reach out to. And so you're not just that, I always want to say that unhinged uncle that lives in the attic that comes down and screams at everybody, no, the world's burning, we're under attack. It's like, I want a seat at that Thanksgiving table, right? I want to be invited to that, and I want to be a productive member of that family, and that they actually bounce ideas off of and treasure my conversations. And so, we're not the business unit, not the office of no, but we are that trusted advisor. And I think that helps whenever the unsanctioned and shadow AI is happening. It's like, hey, if you've developed a relationship, I want to do this in AI. How do we do this? And, what are your policies and procedures for that?
So, Steve, I love the crazy uncle analogy. No, I totally agree with you that we need to be injecting AI as early into the process as possible. And the only way to do that is through effective communication. I'll take it, just a little step further and say that, I really think that with AI, the CISO needs to be seen as not just accepting of AI, I think the CISO really needs to be seen as a champion of AI within the organization to keep people from really trying to go around and create shadow AI. There needs to be, as you were saying, communication at all phases, early on around, hey, these are acceptable use of AI. This is the type of AI that we're going to have. It needs to be communicated out, when and what types of outcomes the end users are going to be able to expect from AI, but in a way that is very embracing of the AI and really championing the use of AI within the organization. I think that only by doing that will it really get that message through to people that, hey, I should wait on this thing. There's good things coming. I'm not going to have to wait years and years to do it, and I can do it in the right way now because my organization is supporting these initiatives.
Yeah. All right. Well, gents, we've clearly established that there's many different balancing acts that a CISO has to take relative to being effective within these state and local government agencies. If we kind of distill it down, what are two or three pieces of advice you would give to a CISO today to encourage them to really keep up with the pace of change, but be effective in their role?
Yeah, for me, I mean, we've hit on it a couple times, but don't lose sight of the basics as you're looking forward to some of these shiny ball activities. And look at things where you might be able to dual purpose security basics as well as emergent technology to combat emergent threats. We've already kind of touched on some of those types of recommendations, but want to reiterate that at the end, I guess, since you gave the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I'd mentioned a couple times before too, I think those relationships are really important. That you've developed those relationships with the business leaders in your organization, and even to expand it out a little bit, maybe to the whole of state. Business leaders and IT and security leaders, if you're local, in your state, or if you're state, in the different locals and municipalities too, that having that, that expanded knowledge, not just to mention the access to the tools that we've talked about as whole of state provides, but also that knowledge, right? That you have an expanded knowledge base that goes beyond your agency or your entity, but actually reaches out to localities and also state. And so just develop those relationships and really lean into them and want to be seen as a member of that family, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Steve, just really quick, that's a great point about creating those relationships, not just within the executive branch, but out to the locals. Over a coffee sometime, I'll tell you the story. We had one of the largest ransomware attacks ever to hit local government in Maryland while I was the state CISO. And we could have done a better job creating those relationships ahead of time. And it significantly slowed down some of the progress we made on remediation because of it. So it was definitely a lesson learned. Unfortunately, one I had to learn the hard way, but it's a great point.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's it's tough because sometimes you want to I got my kingdom, you got your kingdom, and we don't they kind of see you as you're trying to interject and take over, and it's like, yeah, no. If we develop that relationship in a time of peace, then when the time of war comes, then we've already got it, and they're not seeing it as something that's nefarious, but it's actually, hey, we've already, this guy right here, I know him and I know his abilities, and I know he really kind of cares for what's happening. And so, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. All right, Jens, last question for you. I often like to ask our experts to peer into the future a little bit. If you look out 2 years, 5 years, what are you excited about within this space, and what are you most nervous about from a security standpoint?
I mean, the answer to both of mine is AI, probably.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised almost if that wasn't a very common answer among CISOs. The promise that AI can bring. We talked about how it can help with your cyber operations, make your SOC more efficient, make your analysts better. But also the emergent threats that are going to come out from AI. I mean, you could envision scenarios where kill chains are more complex than what humans have ever thought of, starting to string together different types of attacks, starting to have, there's techniques where you try to make somebody look somewhere else, as a for instance, so that you can attack the place you actually want to attack. And I can't imagine how much those types of techniques are going to advance. And just the malware issues that we talked about, I think, are just the tip of the iceberg there. So both the promise AI can bring to make our cyber operations, our cyber teams more effective, but also the fear that the bad guys are using AI and things to get a lot more complicated for us, and hopefully we're going to be able to make sure that our systems keep up.
Yep.
Yeah, it is hard to say something other than AI there. And if you looked forward to it and said, well, AI, so you'd mentioned so I could relax on the beach, I'm going to go relax on a mountain with a lake somewhere. But really, I don't know if you all saw, there was this video that just was out a couple of weeks ago where the AI was being used to book a hotel, a series of rooms for an event. And so AI had called the hotel, and AI from the hotel had answered, and each of those AIs recognized that they were AI. And so then they used something smarter than me, a AI only language that we couldn't hear, just like, and they did, what was going to take, maybe 30 minutes to do, it did in a matter of like a minute.
Yeah.
And that's kind of scary to me, but it is, I can see, and we talked about the AI fighting AI, and you look in the future, and I think that is a real possibility. But it's, I think that the human element of being able to kind of think outside the box, and that's where we provide our people with these tools and the training on how to use them, and that's where diversity comes into our workforce. That everybody looks at these things kind of through different eyes and kind of what they do and how they think. And that's, I think, where we come with really great ideas on how to use that AI in the protection of our assets.
Yeah. Well, that's a great way to end us today. So, John, Steve, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.
Hey, and thank you for joining us as well. This is one of several episodes we have about how state and local government agencies are addressing different technologies. So if you enjoyed this, check out the others in the series. And we've got that and much, much more out on WWT.com. Lots of content you can consume anytime, and plenty coming up on the calendar. You can book that and make sure you check it out when it drops. So always love to hear your feedback as well. So if you get a survey, let us know how we did, or just drop us an email and let us know that way too. Thank you for coming, and that'll wrap today. We'll see you next time.